Hi, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with my special guest. His name is Bill Peterson. Bill is the Southern California Regional Director of a well-known CPA review course called Wiley CPA Excel. I've actually known Bill for several years now, and he's come to my college on multiple occasions to speak to my students about the CPA exam and how his review course can help them successfully pass that exam. Bill, thank you so much for coming to speak with my students today.
Thanks for having me, Ming.
Well, let's get started. So I have some questions for you, and hopefully as you answer these questions, my students will get to know a little bit more about both you and as well as your review course. So my first question is, can you briefly share with students a little bit about yourself, your background, and your work experiences?
Sure. I went to school at UC Irvine. I was actually the first class to graduate with the accounting minor, fun fact. And then shortly after I graduated from UCI, I started at PwC in Irvine in the audit practice. And about 3 years into my time at PwC, I got my CPA license. And after about 5 years total at PwC, I decided to move on and I went to work at a real estate investment trust, actually like just a couple doors down from my PwC office, coincidentally. And then before I came to Wiley and kind of switched careers a little bit, I worked at a dental manufacturer in Orange as an accounting manager.
Well, great. Let's talk about the CPA exam and the CPA review course. So I've always told my students, if you want to take the CPA exam, you absolutely have to take a CPA review course. There's a lot of stuff that I, as a professor, as well as other professors, we cover, but the CPA review course really helps narrow down things. So I've told my students that, hey, you absolutely have to take it. I actually don't know. Well, let me stop myself there. I only know of one person in my entire life who actually passed the CPA exam, but did not take a CPA review course. And that person happened to have a PhD in accounting. But aside from that person, everyone else I've known, they all took a review course in order to successfully pass the CPA exam. So, I've done enough preaching myself, but could you tell my students why they need to take a review course?
Absolutely. It's funny. I think one or two other people who've said told me they didn't use a review course when they were studying for the CPA exam. And I know at least one of them was also a PhD. So I think it might just be one of those things where someone thinks they function that much better in that environment, just book learning, so to speak. This day and age, I think the format of the exam itself also helps, because you need to be used to the multiple choice questions and the task-based simulations and the way that in our course particularly you get that interaction. But more so than anything, you have to think about all of the information that you learn over the course of your accounting education, all of the books you've accumulated, whether you sold them back or not. That's a lot of information, and it's not all tested on the CPA exam. And so what's on the CPA exam is based on what they call the AICPA blueprints. And what we as a review course will do is we take the AICPA blueprints and we focus all the work of everything that's in our course on those CPA blueprints. And when things change, we take them out. So anything that's not on the CPA exam that you might have learned in school or might be relevant to accounting in general, the practice of accounting, is not in there if it's not on the CPA blueprints. So it really helps you to narrow what you're looking at, or what you're focusing and what you're studying on. So because you only have so much time, it's already going to be extremely challenging to find the time to study for the CPA exam. You really need to be utilizing your time as best as you possibly can, which it needs to be focused. So it's the best way to manage your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. So my next question is, as you know, there's obviously many choices in terms of review courses that students can select from to help them, right? So can you tell me what makes Wiley CPAexcel a really good choice for students?
Absolutely. The biggest thing that I realized when I first started working for Wiley, after having taken the CPA exam myself and passing, I had a similar experience to probably many professionals my age that took the electronic exam, which was that I didn't pass every single test the first time. And so for us at Wiley, we have what we call our partner until you pass guarantee, which means that you will have access to our course until you pass. All of our products, all levels of our products, you have access until you pass. I kind of went through, I passed one test, I didn't pass the other 3 in time. And then my review course expired shortly thereafter. And then I kind of had to start over. I had the one test that I passed expire, and then I was really back at square one. So that's something you're just not going to have to worry about with our course. It's always going to be there for you. Also, the exam planner is extremely important because, like I said, your time is going to be limited when you're studying for these exams, because most likely you're going to be working full time for some or all of the time. And so the exam planner will prompt you to create an exam plan when you first start our course, and it'll say, what day do you want to start studying? What day do you want to take the test? And then it's going to tell you how many hours per week to study. And then you can allocate those hours to the days in the week. And so you can really customize it to you specifically. And then when you kind of finalize your exam plan, it's going to put on a calendar exactly what lessons to do every single day of the week from the time you start until the time you finish. So you really have a perfect idea of what exactly you have to do. And all of those, what I mentioned, are bite-sized lessons. They're all 5 to 15-minute video lectures with the study guide. What's in our hard copy study guide is also on there electronically in each of the bite-sized lessons, along with electronic flashcards, and also the PowerPoint slides that are used in the video. So you can print those out if you'd like and use them and take notes on them if that's really what you prefer. And then, so those bite-sized lessons, the nice thing about them, because they're so short, you don't have to commit 4 hours uninterrupted to studying for the CPA exam to be effective. You can really, the expectation is you can get through one of them in 25 to 35 or 40 minutes. So you can do some before you go to work in the morning, you can do some at lunch, you can do some after you feed the dog, do some before you go to bed. So you can split it out, and it's already kind of split out like that. And that also comes back to help you when you're maybe struggling with a particular part or something, or a particular subject. The names of all the bite-sized lessons aren't arbitrary. It's like you're studying the income statement. Here's a lesson about the income statement. Here's one about the statement of cash flows. Here's one about audit risk. And you can drill down and get more and more questions, particularly when you get the Platinum course. You have 12,000 multiple choice questions and almost 600 task-based simulations. So you really have a lot to drill into, so that when you need that additional depth, it's there for you to really get you through.
And I was going to mention that one of my students recently passed the CPA exam. His name is Richard. And Richard said what really made a difference. This was actually an older student. I think he was maybe in his 60s. He's been trying for several years. He had tried for several years to pass the CPA exam, and he finally did. And he said, with your review course, what really made the difference was the tons and tons of practice problems that he was able to work on. So it was kind of like working out at a gym. Every day he just had all these problems.
Yeah.
And he sat down and just spent hours and hours just repeating over and over again. And so he was ultimately able to achieve his dream of passing.
That's great.
Yeah.
We're always happy to hear that. It's great.
Cool. So one last question. So enrolling in a CPA review course is obviously a major financial investment. It costs quite a bit of money. So do you guys provide students samples of lectures or samples of course materials so they can kind of check it out before they make that major financial commitment?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a 14-day free trial on our website, which is www.efficientlearning.com/CPA. And I mean, it's kind of the first thing that might draw your eye is the free trial. You'll have 14 days to just check it out. It'll let you play around with the exam planner, like I mentioned, and you can get an idea of how that goes. And you can get a really good idea of what the bite-sized lessons look like. Because a big part of choosing your CPA review course, I mean, there's things that go into it like price and, what you've heard from friends and things like that. But it's also very important to find one that works for your learning style. So I encourage everyone to go and do that. We also offer discounts for students. If you go to efficientlearning.com/students, you'll see the student discount on there. There's also, we may have a particular discount with other schools. Just get in touch with me and I can put you in the right direction.
Wonderful. Hey, Bill, you shared a lot of helpful information to my students. I think they'll take a bit of time to think about it, and hopefully they'll enroll in your review course. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in one of the future campus recruiting events.
Yeah, me too. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day.